welcome back to Country Tough with Brandy Von Holten. Today I have DVM, Dr. Bruce Whittle with me. Okay, so if you've been following me on Facebook, you know that my mule JoJo, okay, the one that I do mounted archery on, had a tooth issue, okay? A tooth issue that I wrote about it 2 times in a magazine called Mules and More Magazine, because there's an article that's called Always Push for the X-Ray. So he had a bump on his jaw, and then it turned out it was an overgrown tooth or an abscessed tooth or something. We'll have Dr. Whittle tell us all about that tooth, and then he's going to tell us all about his practice and all sorts of things from the veterinarian world, okay? So JoJo, by the way, was an extreme gentleman for Dr. Whittle, and I think the surgery went well. It took us a long time to get that tooth out. My regular veterinarian that actually found the tooth issue was Dr. Hausma, and he is in Warrensburg, and Dr. Hausma is... he's helped me out a lot, but then Dr. Hausma was like, hey, this right here is a big tooth issue. I'm going to send you to somebody I think that's going to be able to help you a little bit more because of the severity of it. And then that's whenever I met Dr. Whittle. So, Dr. Whittle, tell us about that, about the tooth extraction and what exactly was wrong with the mule, and then we'll get into just equine teeth in general.
Okay, so JoJo had an abscess of his mesial root of what we call the 308 tooth, which is on his lower jaw on the left side. So it's the third tooth back. And so it was causing some bony reaction around the bottom of the root, and so it needed to be extracted because otherwise it was just going to continue to cause problems.
Okay, so something that Dr. Whittle, whenever we were there for quite a bit, and we were so happy that it wasn't excruciatingly cold. We had a little break in the weather, but he says that a lot of people will clamp onto that tooth and they try to just gyrate it, and we're talking about just going back and forth and back and forth. He doesn't do that. You get a hold of it, and so this right here, you're going to have to talk on this because this is your expertise. So tell me about that, what you see most of the time and what you do.
Well, so I start out with some very specialized instruments to try to loosen the tooth up as much as I can before I start moving the tooth. And that way I don't have to work as long on because actually that extraction could have taken longer if I hadn't gotten rid of part of the periodontal ligament by cutting it. So I start out with some instruments called periotomes, and then I have to make sure that I get the gingiva, which is the gum tissue, separated from the tooth. And then I go to what's called a spreader, and what that does is it puts pressure forwards and backwards on the tooth, and it's really slow. Everything takes, several minutes. It's just not, moving all the time. And so it's really weird. The slower you go, the faster the tooth will come out because you're getting rid of the ligament that holds the tooth in faster.
Okay. Well, in horse competitions, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. But people that aren't experienced think that they're just supposed to go fast and then get smooth later. It's so opposite. It's always the basic thing in the world, but done the best way, turns out to be the thing that is most time effective and time efficient. So slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So whenever I got there, it was very apparent that Dr. Whittle really has a passion for equine dentistry because you have so many tools, and you've actually worked on and worked with the people that are manufacturing equine dental tools. So speak on that.
So my wife would tell everybody that I'm not happy with lots of different tools and things, and I always want to make things better. And so a lot of times, unless it's something made out of wood, I don't have that ability to make it better, but I just happen to get in contact with a manufacturer that he was looking for some help, and I was just tagged along at a meeting, and nobody else helped him, and I was willing to give him feedback, and so I've been working with him for, 5 or 6 years now, and just trying to improve instruments. And because there's a disconnect between the manufacturers that make equipment because they don't use them or know how to use them, and so it's helpful for them if they have somebody that can, help tweak them so that they make them better.
Okay. The whole world has things that the people that are using it most definitely did not manufacture or build it. Okay. Sometimes I'll see something and it's so made incorrectly, and I'm like, this is horrible. And I'm like, how many college degrees went into this? This is not made. Like, the person that made it needs to use it, but not everybody that's into making tools is going to be extracting jacked up teeth from an equine's mouth. So it's really nice that this manufacturer is working with you, because the slightest, I could see something being a little bit longer, a little bit shorter or something, and it really make a difference in what you're trying to do. So the equipment, you got a box in the day that we were there, and you were like, yeah, that's probably like $15,000 worth of equine tools. So tell us about some of the changes that you've made in some of these tools that you've helped bring about.
Well, a lot of, like what you said, is just changing a little bit on the dimensions. Like the jaws have to come together at a certain width, and that width is different whether it's a top tooth or a bottom tooth. And so a lot of times the same instrument won't work on a top tooth and a bottom tooth. And then sometimes the length of the jaw, if it's longer than the tooth, then it's going to try to grab the next tooth, and you've got to be able to isolate each individual tooth. And then some of the other things, probably one of the things I'm most proud of is for extracting wolf teeth, which are a pretty commonly extracted tooth in the horse. And I told him that we needed different widths of instruments because it has a cutting edge on it, because you're cutting the ligament, and you have to kind of fit the radius of the tooth. And so he said, well, I'd have to make a bunch of different instruments. And so I asked him if he could make them with interchangeable tips on them. And he said he could, and he could make it with a square shank so that it would index, so that it wouldn't twist, so you could, so the instrument would work better. And I told him, I said, I could make a square shank, but I don't know how you build or make a square hole. And he said, oh, yeah, we can do that. So
he can make a square hole. Okay.
Exactly. So so they did that. And then another instrument, it was based on a small animal or human dentistry instrument that I thought would work in the horse. But the problem with the horse is we don't have as good of access as you would in a horse or a human. And so we needed to put it on a right angle, and so he built that for me. So, and that was one of the most popular instruments he sold at the Equine Veterinary Convention in December.
Okay. Well, because I bet the veterinarians were like, oh my gosh, something that's made correctly for what I need. Because y'all are in the trenches. You're in this animal's mouth. You got this big old nasty, 15-pound tongue or something in the way. You got the owner that probably has got an animal that they treat like a little puppy that's over 1,000 pounds, and you're trying to get something done, and you need your instruments to work as best as you can so you can be in and out. Right. So, well, let's let them get to know you a little bit. Okay, so how long have you been in practicing medicine? How long you been married?
Well, so I've been married 2 weeks longer than I've been a veterinarian.
Okay.
So my wife and I got married 2 weeks before we graduated. We were classmates, and so we're both veterinarians, and so we moved to Trenton, Missouri 2 weeks later, and decided to buy some property and started a practice from scratch.
Okay. Now then, I gave you the tour of our ranch, and I showed you that our office used to be in our house, okay? But then we were like, we got to be done with that. We got to move out of there because we weren't ever separating from our business. Okay, so you said that y'all first lived at y'all's clinic?
Yes, we lived there for 5 years, and our oldest son was born the next spring, and so it was pretty crowded in the clinic. And then once our youngest son came along 5 years later, then it was really crowded, and it was time to move out of the clinic.
Okay. We noticed that people, they don't mean to, but they little bit, they didn't really respect our time or our space, you know what I mean, just because we were there. So we were really happy to move our office out of our business. So people out there, first-time business owners, man, it seems like the best idea in the world because it's going to be right there. You might want to think about it for just a second or call and talk to one of us in person. We'd probably take your phone call, but I would highly recommend not doing that. You've got to have that downtime or you'll lose that passion. And so here we go. Do you know that most people that work together that are married, we have an 80% divorce rate because it is really hard to be married to somebody and then to keep that passion and that fire alive whenever you're talking about employee reviews or buying inventory and then working. So you've been married for how many years?
29, almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. So tell us how, because me and you are the 20%. Okay. I've been married. I don't know how many years we've been married. Okay. We got married in 2005. So, I don't know, less than 20. My husband hates that I'm not able to just, spit those numbers out. But I'm like, we were married 05 of 05, okay, May of 05. And that's all I remember. And then we have to start doing the math. But so what's some tips you have of people that are married but they work together?
Well, I think the reason it works for us is that my wife and I really do different things. She does most of the small animal work, and I do the large animal work. And sometimes she'll have me help her with cases, but usually she doesn't help me with cases because she doesn't do large animal work. So, but I'll help her with some surgeries and that kind of thing. But that's when we get closer to the 80% is when we do surgery with each other.
Oh my gosh, my husband.
It goes well. We had a dog that we teamed up on a couple years ago, and this dog, the owner had a circular saw blade on a weed eater, and it was a total accidental thing, and the dog ran into the weed eater with its face, and it split its nose and then the bone underneath the eye, and so I bet we worked on it for 4.5 hours total surgery time between the two of us. And the owner was ready to put the dog to sleep, but we said, well, let us see what we can do. And I'm probably a little bit more detail oriented, and so I did the mouth and the nose reconstruction, and then she did the back part. And that dog, every time I see it, we're just amazed that, you can't even tell. There's a little white spot on the part that I sutured up. Her part looks really good, but you can't tell other than that teeny white spot.
Well, and you know what? That sounds like a horrible thing that dog went through. I bet that, I feel like my horses every day wake up and say, they flip a coin and they're like, am I going to die from suicide or am I going to murder something today? Okay, every day they're like, well, how can I jack myself up or one of my herd mates? And whenever I was a young kid, I had this horse named Penny. Well, Penny we bought from the horse auction. Then she came home and she gave birth. Okay, so we ended up with a little foal. That thing ran into the head of a combine. Down the side. It was only 10 days old and the combine wasn't even on. But, those teeth were sharp. My goodness, that poor vet that got called out there because here we are I'm crying and, this vet's wanting to do just this amazing job. That thing was almost 200 stitches that he had to put into that horse. And you know what? He turned out fine, So, man, I sure am happy that vets don't freak out like the owners do whenever they see some trauma. You're like, I'm going to try to fix that.
Well, sometimes we're freaking out on the inside. We just try not to show it on the outside.
Well, and so I'm an old school science teacher, so sometimes I'm like, wow, that's cool, and everybody else is like, I'm going to throw up, and I'm like, woo, I'm going to get up in that. That's cool looking, like, I don't know, I like anatomy and physiology, and I like the weird stuff. I'm not good with temperatures. Sometimes if something's still warm, I don't know, I have temperature issues sometimes, but sense I'm okay and seeing things I'm okay most of the time, except for, oh my gosh, one time we had a horse here and the thing had choked. Okay, so we had to call the vet out to help us, and they had tubed it. Well, the vet comes with her daughter, and her daughter's just sitting in her child seat strapped in. Well, that vet had to help siphon that, so put her mouth on there, and I could see it coming, and I was like, she's not going to move in time. She's not going to move in time. I get the gagging, right? Well, then it was just gone. And then her daughter's just looking at me, and her, and she could talk, and she's just like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be okay. Like, it just messed with me because the tube was clear, okay? But that child's going to be able to see some nasty stuff, and it's not going to phase her. And then here, everybody's laughing at me, and I'm like, shut up, okay? It bothered me, and they're like, Brandy, you used to be a science teacher. And I'm like, be quiet, it got me, okay? So have you ever had anything get you that usually doesn't get you?
No, not really. I remember before I was in vet school, I would have been an undergraduate, and I went home to Joplin, and I was hanging out with a veterinarian that I'd worked for when I was in high school, and he was going to do a tumor removal on the upper jaw of a dog's mouth. And so basically it was of course specialized, but a hammer and a chisel, and was going to remove part of the bone, and he wanted me to help him. And I had just had some wisdom teeth extracted not very long before that, and that one bothered me a little bit, but that's probably about the only thing. Most of the time you just I don't know, you just get focused on the work, and you don't pay attention to it. And, we see lots of pretty nasty things, and bad smells, and
man,
you get used to it, I guess.
Talking about smells, man, whenever I was a kid, this vet, he was having to go around and make all these house calls. Well, the house call before us, he had to clean out the baby. The foal died inside the mare, had to clean out the mare. Okay, so he came in there, and we were like, ooh, you stink. Okay, you stink so bad, okay? But we were trying to, suck it up. Well, he was there for our horses. All of our horses came by, and then they curled their lip up, and their head was straight up. They looked like they were like a choir singing like, ooh, you so stinky, you so stinky. And I was just like, I have never tried to shoo my horses away from the vet. And I'm like, oh, I was so embarrassed. So animals, they won't sugarcoat nothing. No.
No, we have a dog that she goes back and forth to the clinic, and she looks like a border collie, but she's not. She's a mutt, basically. But if I come back from working cattle, she won't have anything to do with me for a couple hours. She'll sniff my fingers, and she'll start growling and barking at me. And
because she's mad because she didn't get to come?
No, I think that she's never been around cattle, and she just doesn't know that smell. I've had her around horses because one time when I had done some dentistry, we had horses tied to a trailer outside, and so I took her outside, and so she got to smell around the horses, and the horse smell doesn't bother her, but she doesn't like cattle. And then I have a bison herd that I work, and I work them in the fall, and when I came back from working the bison herd, she wouldn't have anything to do with me for almost 24 hours after that. So bison must be really scary cows, at least smelling.
This is a border collie, and it does not like the smell of cattle.
Well, she's not a border collie. She's I think a miniature American Shepherd, and then probably a pit bull Labrador Retriever mix.
So she just thinks you're out playing with aliens. She's
Apparently,
just like, what do you have on you?
Yep.
Man, you know what? So we own a horse trail riding facility. It's called Von Holten Ranch, and we've been open for 10 years now, and we have covered stalls, we have a covered arena, we have campsites, we have trails, we have this mountain trail course, and we teach mounted archery here. We have a lot of things going on. We have a small boarding barn, and then my husband makes custom woodworking, okay? Well, we get to see all sorts of people, especially with our event called Chicks in the Sticks. It's an all-inclusive women's event. We have a massage therapist come in, all the food's provided. We have like a arts and craft night, like we'll have somebody come in and help us with that. We go to this Mennonite lady's house that makes everything from scratch. She even makes homemade bread, homemade butter. Like, this is like legit, right? So I've gotten to see all these different people from all over the United States. Like our Chicks in the Sticks, we actually have people that come in from other countries for it. We've had somebody that came in from Canada for it and somebody that came in from Germany. But we have people that come from all over the United States for this Chicks in the Sticks. Okay, so with that being said, we've gotten to see some crazy mixtures of horses and everything. But the horses that have never been around a mule, okay, there's usually extreme behaviors with it. Sometimes, you know, I've seen these, sometimes they're in love with those mules. They're like, what are you? It'll be like, can I please be around the mule? And then other horses are like, it's like it's a video game, and they've got this red circle with a target that finally locks in on them, and they're like, I will kill you. Okay, so, and then, but most of them are like, what are you? You're not a horse, but you are something. I don't know. We've had that experience. And then one time we thought it would be great for this horse competition, you know, to bring in a llama. That was a pretty bad decision on our part, because those horses were like, what are you? What are you? And then that llama is just like, I'll spit on you. I will spit on you if you get any closer, you know? And so we've had some, I'll tell you one other, we have this thing called, we used to do these things called the All Around Cowgirl Challenge. And I would have these weird horse events, okay? Well, one of them was you had to run your horse down, get off your horse. Somebody could hold your horse. Okay, you could have an assistant there. Then you had to take a pair of underwear and put it on a goat. Okay, but you couldn't do any nanny slamming. No nanny slamming, so you couldn't grab them, slam them down. You had to keep them up, okay? Then you had to get back on your horse and run down. Okay, so this was like, it was really fun because we had like 30 teams competing in that, okay? Well, I had called my friend up, and I was like, hey, here, I need a really tame goat, okay? Dude, the goat that she brought out here, I was like, its head was bigger than my head, okay? And I got big head. I got really big head. And I was like, dude, is that 12 inches of scrotum? Is that thing? I was like, you couldn't give us something without all that? So you should have seen our guests, because they were having to make room for everything to get that underwear onto that goat. It was the most fun we've ever had, and that goat was like, this is awesome. I'm just sitting here eating, and everybody was trying to be gentle with it. That goat, whenever my husband pulled up with it, it would rear up in the horse trailer, and it would look out of the top thing, and I'm like, did she send a goat, or did she send like a moose? Like, what did she send? So we've just had like these horses just respond to these animals of like, what is Brandy bringing us? And the same thing with ponies. We've seen horses that they were going to run away to Texas from Missouri because a pony came towards them, or a wagon. A wagon comes towards them. Some of those horses get scared. So have you had any funny experiences with something you're like, dude, it's a pony, calm down? Or, dude, it's a massive goat, like, calm down. So.
Oh,
I got you, didn't I?
Yeah, you got me on that one.
So your dog, though, that's what we were talking about, was like, your dog was like, what is that? So, any other thing that's weird that maybe it doesn't have to be in that same category, but being a veterinarian where you're just like, you're so goofy, that's nothing. Nope.
I mean, we see all kinds of weird things, and there's one of the veterinary magazines has a contest every year, the weirdest things seen on a radiograph. Usually it's small animal things, but we've pulled lots of hooks out of dogs or cats' lips, and you just never know what you're going to see from day to day.
On that note right there, boy, I've been watching some TV shows, and now I'm afraid of my grill, with the wire brushes, because some of those little individual wires can come out, and they're showing where people had ingested them and then they traveled. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that things would travel so much in your body, but I am like, okay, we can never use one of those brushes ever again because I'm scared to death of them. So, yeah, I could see animals eating weird stuff and things getting lodged and having to remove stuff. Have you ever had to remove anything that you were like, now that doesn't go there?
Yeah, probably the most interesting one, and this was a long time ago, it was an Amish client, and he never called unless it was pretty bad because he would take care of most of the stuff himself. But he called because he had this mare that she was a standardbred driving mare, and she had some splinters in her head just behind her eye. Mm-hmm. And so I go out there, and he had some stocks. He was a shoer, and so he put her in his shoeing stocks, and I'm examining the mare and kind of feeling around, and I can see these splinters, but I can't really move them any. And so I went ahead and sedated her, and I clipped and scrubbed it up really good. And I had to make a little incision to look at it a little bit better, and I could tell once I did that it was a stick. And so I went to my truck, and you don't have a special stick removal surgery instrument, and so I had some pliers that I sterilized, and then I remember I was standing on a stool, and I grabbed onto the stick, and I start pulling it up out of the wound, and I just kept pulling it up, and I think I went slower and slower just for dramatic effect because the owner's eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I finally got it out of there, and we went and measured it, and it was exactly 1 inch in diameter, and I can't remember, it was either 10.5 inches long or 11.5 inches long.
She got that shoved right behind her eye.
And so I told him, I said, I just can't figure out where this thing was. And so he had a horse skull there, and so we put it against the horse skull, and we could look at it. And how that did not hit anything important, but that mare, I flushed it out, and she did great. He taped that stick to that skull he had so he could show everybody that came into his shop about it. But it was, I couldn't believe, but I think it was from a hedge tree, and I think the horse just raised its head up into it, and it broke off. And yeah, but it just looked like some splinters sticking out because the wound, it hadn't healed over, but it had kind of shifted to the side, and I was just thinking that there were just some little splinters in there, but there's this almost foot-long stick stuck in this horse's head.
Oh, man. The only thing I've ever had that, so during COVID, right, the C word, right, there was also like a big breakout in the equine world of like, I don't even remember what it was, but it would cause like stuff on the lips and around the cornet band of the hoof.
Oh, vesicular stomatitis.
Yes. Okay. So we were like, it was bad. So we were gloving up, and every trailer we would check. We were opening the mouths of all these horses because it was so bad. Okay. Man, we found some stuff. I never found that. Okay. But it would be like the horse's gums would be like white, like to the point of like, hey, this is freaky. Okay, I found like 3 things just from opening mouths. One thing that I found was a dang stick stuck across in the roof of their mouth, and I was like, because the horse, I was like, hey, something's up right here. And then they were like, oh my gosh, what is that? And so we had a couple of people that went to a vet after all I did was open their mouth, making sure that, everybody's worried about COVID, and we were worried about that stuff coming to our equine trail riding facility. With us having a facility, we feel like our horses are here. And a lot of people will say, Coggins is dead. Taking Coggins test is dumb. Well, you know what? It's not dumb to me, because whenever I was a child, all of our horses came down with EIA. Every one of our horses did, except for this one little pony we had. And we didn't take our horses anywhere. And our neighbors that shared a fence didn't take their horses anywhere. It was people that were road riding. So, like, I don't know, whenever people ride my butt that I check their Coggins. And I'm like, we're supposed to. And so the state vet came to our place in 2020, but he came here to ride. And then was whenever I was like, hold on, I'm going to go get some gloves, And then he was like, have you had anything bad come here? And I was like, no. And he's like, and you never will. He's like, you're doing such a good job. He was like, man, I wish people actually checked papers and cared and kept up with stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, because my horses are here. The horse that I have named KTM, I got his mother when I was 8 years old, and that's because we had to put down our entire herd. So, I don't know, whenever people are, our first year being here, we had to send over 40 people home because they didn't have Coggins. They didn't have a proper Coggins test. The next year it was 20. And now people don't mess with me, and they're so appreciative, and yeah, we trimmed some fat from our clientele because some people were like, oh, she checked our stuff. And then other people are like, I have never had anybody ever check. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to check your stuff. And I know there's issues with that test, because I know that they could have, positive EIA, and they could have, because that test is only, they have the test done once a year. Some places make you get it done twice a year. So, so tell me, what are some things, because you are very passionate about equine dentistry, what are some things that you wish that more people did?
Well, regarding the teeth, I wish just more people would have their horses checked more regularly. When I first started doing dentistry, everybody thought that dentistry was an old horse thing, that you didn't need to float their teeth till they were like 20 years old. And my favorite horses to work on, or mules, are ones that are...
Good catch.
Yeah, probably under 5 years of age. I like mules. A lot of people don't. But when they're... Usually they have their permanent teeth by the time they're about 5 years of age. So they start out not from birth, but within, usually they have their last baby tooth in by 7 months or so. But they will start shedding those teeth in, and they'll be replaced by the permanent teeth. And so they have 24 baby teeth usually, and then they can have up to 44 permanent teeth.
Is that called losing the caps? Is that what people would say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the caps are the remnants of the baby teeth. So they're usually pretty short. Sometimes they don't come out properly, and so then we'll have to extract them. But
those can be rough. Those can just be like a big old meat grinder or whatever in their mouth, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll be unstable, and so they'll cause a lot of discomfort when they're eating. But so you have a total of 68 teeth that are erupting in their mouth up to in their first 5 years of life. And so there's a lot of change going on. And so there are a lot of problems that we can, I hate to use the word fix, but we can
make
a lot
better.
of times we can fix them. And, before that, I get very frustrated when I see an 8-year-old horse that has a problem that I could have fixed 4 years ago. And now it's going to be a lifelong issue because there's nothing we can do to get that tooth into the right position, maybe.
My horse, KTM, if he would have been born in the 1800s, he wouldn't have made it to like 12 years old, okay? So he's always just kind of been a little bit pissy in general. And I think part of that, he has one tooth that it forms a hook. It's one of his teeth in the very back, and it grows a hook into his jaw or like into the cheek. And I'm like, man, if I wouldn't have had dental care done on him, and he was huge by the age of 2, where my other horse, I had to wait until she was 4 years old to break her because she was just slow to grow, right? But he's always been a big old monster, and I had his teeth looked at, and they were like, I can't believe you had this done so early. And I was like, well, he's just this monster of a horse. I want to make sure everything's okay. And he had that big old hook on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, and other people were like, I can't believe you had it done so early. They're like, we don't get ours done until they're like 16, 18 years old, and they start dropping grain. And so if I wouldn't have done that, and I'm real sensitive about him because, the horse died. All of our horses had to be put down. Then I got his mama, and that's her last foal. And like, I have him with us now, and he's like the main character of my children's book. And he was like the main horse in my lesson program. But I try to take really good care of him, but I sure am glad, because he would have had, he would have had 15 years of that tooth just cutting the heck out of him. And then the other horse that was slow to grow, every time I've had her teeth done, she was just nasty about losing those caps or something, because the inside of her cheek was just always so cut up. And every horse that I have acquired, I've never gotten anything good. I've always gotten something that's a fixer-upper. I don't know why I do that. But I want to get one of these days, I'm going to afford a nice horse that's got a warranty or something, okay, instead of buying some old junker. But I always get horses and mules and make them into something, okay? But every one of them, I think they've been chewing on briars and sticks or something, because their teeth are always messed up. I have never had anything that didn't need dental care. And then some of them need dental care like twice a year, and then some of them it's every other year, but they always need that initial. And I would just really encourage people to start doing that like way younger. I don't know what the holdup is about. I mean, could you imagine us not going to the dentist until we're 20? I mean, and I know that's not equal. So 10 or 12, I couldn't imagine a human not going to the dentist. And your teeth is equal to your livelihood. I mean, it's how cattle are categorized by, and how you can guess their longevity is based on their teeth. So I don't know why people would jack around with that.
Yeah, I think it's just more of a tradition thing, and I don't know. We went through a long period of time, looking back at the history. The last real veterinary book that was written on equine dentistry, the first edition was in 1905. And then, then the tractor came into being, and so people quit using their horses for work so much. But horses didn't become used recreationally until probably the late 70s, I think, somewhere in there. And so then people started getting back interested in dentistry, and so we had to relearn it all. And then once, back then it was using hand floats, which is a lot of work. And I started out with hand floats. I graduated in 94, but
from high school or college?
From vet school.
Vet school, okay.
And so I was still using hand floats at that time. There was some power equipment out there, but now I use mostly power instruments, and it makes my job easier because it's not as hard on my body, but it still takes me the same amount of time. So now that's freed me up the extra time it would have taken with the hand floats. Now I can do a better job of examining them and figuring out what I need to do, and not really doing it as much as like a cookbook type procedure, but trying to look at each individual horse and try to figure out what can I do for that horse to make what God gave it work the best.
Yeah, it's all about working with what you have instead of wishing you had something else, because that's kind of useless, right? You really got to work with what you have. And this right here will be weird for your clientele because they don't know me, right? But I'm a former fighter, right? I did that for 23 years. And you know how many instructors were always like, you got to lose weight and we need to put you in this other weight division, which was like 80 pounds away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to lose like a bag of horse feed plus more, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And whenever I finally excelled was whenever I had an instructor, and I had moved to this state because I tried to go to the Olympics. I tried in 04, 08, and 12 to go to the Olympics in women's heavyweight taekwondo. It's full contact martial arts. And my instructor just wanted me to be fit. And I was like, okay, well, how much weight do you want me to try to lose or whatever? And they were like, oh, we're going to work with whatever tools you got in your toolbox. And then that's whenever I excelled. I am very, very short for a heavyweight. Okay, I'm 5'7", and basically the top of my head doesn't even go to the collarbone of most of the women that I've competed against. But it made me successful because a tall person, usually they've got to be so far away from another person. That's where they're used to fighting at. But then I would come closer and it would mess their game up. But you just had to be crazy enough to get closer. So it's just all about working with what you have. And these horses, oh my gosh, my herd. Okay, so let's talk about like my herd and the financial value that my herd has. Okay, so my horse KTM was free because he was a love child. Okay, and then I have a horse that's got one grandparent the same as him, so I guess it's his cousin. So she was free. Okay. Then I have Coco, the mule that's over 16 hands. She was free. And then I have JoJo. I paid $1,000 for him. And the person actually gave me a discount because they knew that we would take good care of him. And then I have my husband's horse that I paid $700 for, and it's just because she's a leopard Appaloosa. Okay. She's actually worth negative money. Okay. She's just pretty. Unless you know confirmation that she's ugly, okay? So we've got $1,700 in our animals, but then we've put on so many clinics here at Von Holten Ranch, and I've developed them, and I've put years and years and years into them. I had a trail facility that offered me $40,000 for each one of those mules, but I'm like, that's not a $40,000 mule. The only thing that makes it a $40,000 mule is somebody wants to pay you $40,000 for a mule. Okay, those are not 40. I've seen nice mules, and my mules are good, but they ain't 40,000 good. Okay, and then Glamour, I thought, well, Glamour is my smaller Palomino, and she's real ranchy, and I felt like I was limiting her. Okay, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to sell this horse because we own a trail riding facility, and this horse needs to be cutting cows or doing some cowboy a good job, So I priced her because she's grade, which means she doesn't have papers if you're not a horse person listening. But if you're not a horse person and you've made it all the way to this part, then congratulations. We've been talking about horse teeth. But I priced her at $8,000, and I had over 100 people contact me for her. And I was like, oh, maybe. And then my friends got on to me and told me, you deserve a good horse. She doesn't know that you're limiting her. I was like, okay. And then I've had a couple of people that wanted my big Palomino, and that I turned down $8,000 for him. And I was like, if that horse was a human, he'd be on Prozac. He would not do good in a box. He doesn't have the right mental. He's got too much anxiety for that. And then David's horse, somebody offered him $2,000 for it, and I was like, you're crazy. You're crazy. Okay. So a combined total of 40 and 40 is 80 plus 16,000. So that's going to put us at 96, and then 97, 98. So that puts us at $98,000 that they value me for this herd that cost me $1,700 and a ton of freaking time. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's what I've found in the world is it doesn't matter what you. None of my animals have papers. One of them does, which is KTM. And I registered him with his mother was registered and his father was, but I didn't register him with the Paint Horse Association because he's not painting it. He was going to have to be breeding stock while I had him gilded. So I was like, well, that's dumb, that's not dumb. That was just me being goofy, So none of them registered, 2 of them mules, and I love them, but good Lord. I couldn't imagine that. That's not $98,000 worth of animals in that pasture. That's like $2,500 worth of.
Well, there's no such thing as a free horse either.
Oh, no. Those are the most expensive.
Yeah, so many people, get into a horse like that, and, it's their first horse, and they don't realize all that's involved in the upkeep of a horse.
Oh, no. Yeah. I priced it one time for a horse that's going to be boarded and to actually have continual training and the initial purchase of a saddle. With the horse being maybe $4,000, then and that's really low for our time. Okay. I think the year, whenever I estimated, it was 5 digits. I think it was $10,000-$11,000 if you wanted to do things right with having a farrier and having, this was people that were going to have to board, okay? But then veterinarian care and then training, And people are just like, whoa, they think getting a horse, well, they eat grass, that's free, salt block, okay? They're going to go to the doctor once a year, what's that going to be, $100? I'm like, what world do you live in? I don't know. People think that it kind of upsets me whenever people want to come ride my horses for free. And I'm like, you're smoking crack cocaine. I ain't going to let you come and ride my horse. I don't want nobody ride my horse. I have put so much training into them. And then okay, so here I'm going to tell you a pet peeve of Brandy Von Holten. So we used to have a wedding venue, and we would have people come out for their wedding, which was wonderful, right? But a lot of their guests would see horses, and then they would come over, and I would be like, hey, don't pet that horse. What are you doing? That's not yours. Don't do that. And they're like, well, we just want to pet him. And I'm like, I'm not a petting zoo. And it would always be the one that didn't want them to, be around them. But people think that it is their right. If there's a horse there, they have the right to pet it. So, I don't know. I think people have been separated from the farm a little too long. So, have you ever had any experiences like that where you've seen people that are going to go and be like, I'm going to pet all over that animal, and like, you don't want to pet that one at all?
Oh, yeah. Even the waiting room at our clinic, somebody will come in and want to pet somebody else's dog, and it's like, I don't think I would recommend petting that dog.
No, and you know what? We used to have this one dog she was so great, but she hated every veterinarian in the world. We had to muzzle her. She was going to try to take a finger with her. So, so speaking on that part right there, people should always do what whenever they're bringing cats and dogs into a veterinarian clinic? How do you want them?
Well, we would sure like to have them on a leash or in a carrier for a cat, because you get numerous people up front, and those animals don't know each other, and you can get into some we don't want to have something that we have even more to fix once they get there.
Yeah, that's not good. That's never good, man. My only big concern that my dog people, okay, I have great dog people. And then I have people that have their dog on the leash, but it's going to be 10 foot from them, and the dog is smelling all over you. And then the person must not have had no home training at all. They probably didn't have a parent that spanked them or slapped their hand or something, because they're just like, well, she just wants to smell you. And I'm like, well, I just want to kick you, but I'm not going to, you know what I mean? But I'm like, get your dog off of me. And then they get upset whenever I'm walking away, and I'm like, I don't want your dog on me, because I've been bit by a couple of dogs before, and I don't sign up for that, you know what I mean? Like, I like my dog, and I like other people's dogs that are well behaved, but what people just put it right upon themselves to be like, they're just smelling, they just want to play. And I'm like,
but it's just like horse people. A lot of people maybe didn't grow up with horses and don't understand horses that well, and it's gotten more dangerous for veterinarians and farriers, because a lot of the owners don't train their horses well enough to stand to have their feet trimmed or to be examined, and that makes it a lot more dangerous for us.
Well, okay, so on that note right there, I get to see a lot of novice, And then I get to see a lot of amazing people that outride me any day of the week, okay? I get to see the whole spectrum, okay? And then stuff that's not even on the spectrum is so low or is so high, okay? But we started doing these like homeschooling woodshop projects with my husband, and then we were doing these horse camps. We got a lot of people that didn't know nothing about horses, okay? Some basic etiquette and all sorts of stuff. So now it's a website called Horsemanship with Brandy, and I have classes that are just called horse knowledge. And then the horse world is like, how are you going to teach a class if they ain't got a horse? And I'm like, oh, this is not for you. This is for people that were not raised with them. I have online trail riding courses because we don't rent our horses out, but there's all sorts of places that have rental horses, and they will rent to people and take them trail riding for people that have never rode a horse before. Well, I teach them like the bare basics, like what they should wear, what they should do before they get there. I talk to them about how they need to approach the horse because they just don't know it. It's not common knowledge. And then, sometimes it's some hard lessons to learn. So I just try to help them out with that. That one course on horsemanship with Brandy, it's called like Trail Basics. That's for people that are going to a trail facility that don't own horses. And the one is called Horse Knowledge 1 for people that don't own horses, but they want to get into it. I like that course. Like if you've got, I run into people all the time, their kids just love horses, but the parents weren't around horses at all. So it's kind of good to make that kid take that online class. I have more adults that take my class than kids, but it was designed for whoever wants it. It's not like for little bitty babies. It's good for like a 12-year-old and above. But more adults take my classes because they wanted a horse, but their parents said no. And now they're like, I'm 45 years old. I'm getting a horse. When the horse industry, unfortunately, will take advantage of them, they'll be like, oh, here's this $6,000 course just where you can learn some stuff. And then, oh, here's this horse for $15,000. And its head goes up and down a little bit when it trots because it's lame. And like the horse industry dumps on those people. So I try to be somebody that helps them. I want the horse to be successful. I want the rider and the owner to be successful. And just a lot of people do not have the best interest for people in mind. So what are some things that you think people need to look out for whenever they're getting their first animal? I mean, like horse, dog, cow. There's a lot of people right now that want to have their own beef. So anything that you have in general?
Well, I think you just have to do your research about whatever you're getting. And for example, like with cattle, if you don't have a way to handle them, then that's not a very good thing. And, there's nothing more frustrating to a veterinarian when somebody calls and they have, say, 3 cows in a 10-acre pasture and one of the cows is calving, and you ask if they have them up or if they have a way to restrain them, and they basically have nothing except 4 sides to a fence and a feed bunk, and there's not much we can do. And I think of course most people don't remember Marlin Perkins and Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and they would dart an animal and they'd go down, and that's what they expect us to do, but that's not reality. And same thing with a horse. If you have a horse, then you're going to have to be able to move that horse somewhere at some point, if you have an emergency. So even if you don't have a truck and trailer, you need to have arrangements to be able to take a horse, because, there are a lot of veterinarians like me that do what's called ambulatory work, where we drive out to the farms. Well, sometimes we have cases that we can't handle ourselves because they need more advanced care, and so we might refer them to a specialty hospital or a vet school, and you got to be able to have a way to transport them, and you don't want to have to think about that right now when you need to get that horse to the University of Missouri within 2 hours. You need to have those things thought out ahead of time.
So we have been in the horse world for 10 years, okay? And it's been an intense 10 years, okay? Like, people hear all the time. We've had, like, I think 47 different clinicians that have done stuff here. And you know how many people I trust to buy a horse from? It's a single digit, and it's on one hand. Farriers, veterinarians, everything. Like, you know, I actually, in my horse knowledge class, I actually teach them that it's okay to fire someone or to not use their services. You know, there's different personalities, there's different lineage, you know, like there's all sorts of stuff. And a lot of people think they got to stick around, you know, so no, you do need to do your research, and but you need to, I find people that they will listen to someone, and I'm just like, ooh, I wouldn't be listening to that person. You know, I don't know. I would just make sure that you are really like before you hook up with a trainer or whatever, you know, you say, this is the way I want to go. Man, I would dabble a little bit, you know, and find what works for you. But a lot of people, whoever says it first, then they're hooked in on that. And we see a lot of people that get into horses. Now, here we go. Oh, y'all I'm going to get some hate mail over this right here. But we have people, it would be their first horse, and they're like, oh, this thing was going to go to slaughter, and I had to buy it from this rescue. And, like, I love legitimate rescues. Oh, my gosh, we have worked with some legitimate places. But there's a lot of times whenever somebody gets a horse that is that's rescued, the person ends up needing to be rescued from the horse, okay? Or somebody will get into horses, and their first one that they will try to do, they will try to adopt a wild Mustang. And Mustangs are amazing creatures, and I love them, but might not be something for somebody that's never had a horse before. You might want to work with somebody and adopt that horse and have it trained, but you need to pump your brakes, because this is 1,000 pounds of fury, okay? So I see people, they just don't set themselves up for success, and they don't set the equine up for success, and I don't like that. I mean, because the horse industry right now, Yellowstone made us very sexy, okay? And people want to be cowboys, and they're like, whoa, Rip. Man, everybody wants to date Rip right now, okay? And everybody wants to be as cool as Beth and be punchy and all that. Well, you just need to slow down a little bit and take a breath. And if somebody's telling you that you've got to pay this and you got to pay that, you might want to just hold up for a second. And then you might want to go and talk to somebody in the equine industry before you're ready to purchase anything. Go and talk to a veterinarian like, hey, fencing, what do I need to have for a cow? What do I need to have for a horse? You need to go talk to people. Don't just be like, I got this one for free. Somebody probably just dumped on you. So, hey, let's talk about something a little different. Me and Dr. Whittle, or Dr. Whittle and I, we love homesteading and the whole concept of being self-sufficient. And he's actually going to come, I think you're going to try to come to our Country Tough Homesteading Expo, maybe in 2024. But, so tell us, what are some things that you're finding out that you like about homesteading? And homesteading is just like canning, being self-sufficient. Some people think homesteading is like squatting, where you go and get on somebody's land and it becomes yours. We're not talking about that stuff. No, homesteading means like being self-sufficient.
Well, we've tried to grow our own food as far as, have a garden the last few years, and trying to, fruit trees and raspberries, blueberries, that kind of thing. And we've gotten more into canning, and we don't have enough property or time to have cattle of our own, but we've got plenty of clients that have cattle, or a few clients that have swine that we usually get meat from. And so, but we try to grow as much of our own produce as we can, and we can a lot, and we just got a freeze dryer, and we're hoping to get get going on that this summer.
Okay. My goal is to have enough food for a year. And then my Mennonite friends are just like, girl, you don't need food for a year. You need food for 7 months. You just need to get to the next growing season. And I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and fill up the rest of that year, okay? Okay. Don't hate a girl for trying. But, man, one of my goals this year is to I want to can some of our meat, like beef, and then I want to freeze dry part of it. And then I want to have enough jars where if we ever lost power, then I can take the meat that's in the freezer and get it canned. So I'm wanting to have my own back in that because, man, we put so much time and effort into raising our own beef and stuff, and I would just hate for 4 days of power outage because I know those deep freezers usually last for 3 days. I would just hate to lose all that because of a power outage that happened for 4 days long. And then, boy, I don't trust nobody right now in the world. My lack of trust is it's on zero on some things right now. And I'll tell you, I've been using this app, and it's Yucca, Y-U-K-A, and you can scan things, and it tells you the additives. And freaking Skittles and peanut M&Ms are trying to kill people, I swear. I looked up all the additives and then what they actually do, and I'm like, what the heck? One of the lotions that I use, like, don't judge me, but we went to Mexico, and I didn't want to be, the color of whiteout whenever I went, so we went and did like 30, we bought a little package of tanning, okay? Well, then I bought a lotion to extend your tan. That lotion, when I scanned it, oh my gosh, it causes cancer of mammary glands. It causes lower sperm count. And I'm like, oh my God, all I'm trying to do is be tan for a little bit longer. Okay. I'm not trying to do all this. And then my makeup, I use this eyeshadow, and it's, whenever I'm trying to look all extra cute, and it's like a shadow, it's like, for the smoky eye. Yeah, it penetrates into your skin and it accumulates in your liver. It was connected to liver cancer. And I'm like, what? So this year I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of all the BS in my life, all that, like, I'm trying to wear smoky eyeshadow to look sexy. I'm not trying to wear smoky eyeshadow to get liver cancer. I'm trying to get rid of all the lies in my life, and I'm trying to help other people do that same thing. Like, I'm really deep in the Mennonite community. I have a lot of friends, which is, like, how do I get there? But I got there, and they're going to help us with doing a whole bunch of different classes and how to plant, and then I'm trying to bring experts together from all over to help people learn these skill sets. And so we have a website. We have several websites, but the website for that is countrytoughhomesteading.com. And that right there, we're having these classes, like we'll have sourdough classes and how to can and how to do your first garden and how to do gardens different sizes. And we're trying to focus on people from patios to pastures, people that don't have any land at all, and then people that have massive amounts of land, because I feel like we've lost a lot of basic skills, and it's time to relearn those and take the fear out of it. And I just want to help people. I want to help people be more self-sufficient. So, that goes right along with you with animal care and livestock care and proper, people getting good food in their refrigerators and their freezers. So what's your thoughts on homesteading?
Well, I think that, we've let people take care of a lot of things for us anymore. We've just relegated it to other people, and, like food, and so a lot of the food out there is not very healthy anymore. And yeah, my wife and I, we do it a little bit different. She does more intermittent fasting, and I started out more keto, I guess. But, it's depressing going to the grocery store and finding out that there are so many things we can't even eat anymore that, they're just not very healthy for us. So, the more sustainably the food that we eat, the healthier it's going to be for us. So, because I've really gotten into nutrition a lot and, researching things and realizing that, a lot of the information that's out there, what we're told is probably not the truth, but we're told that so somebody can make money.
Well, and you know what? Here's the people that I've been having issues with. Manufacturers. Okay, I am upset with some manufacturers. I am mad at the government. I am mad at the government for allowing some of that, and then I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at myself for blindly accepting truth, and then I found out that it's not. Like one of the seasonings that I was using, it actually promotes obesity, and I'm like, well, that's not what I was wanting. I was just wanting my chicken and my freaking broccoli to taste better. I didn't sign up for that, but I did by not doing my research, and I hate that. I want to love everybody and I want to trust them at face value, but that's not the world we live in. So I just want to tell people, like, do your research, love your family, love yourself enough to go and don't just research something once. Research it from different platforms, because some platforms block information from you. And I'm not trying to be a weirdo. I'm just trying to be healthy, and knowledge is power. And, for me, I'm larger than I want to be, but boy, I'm working hard at it. Not working hard at being bigger, working harder at being healthy. I'm doing ice water baths, and I'm doing grounding, and I'm trying to do this, be outside and have the sunshine on you at the beginning of the day. I am probably a new age hippie, So my motto for this year is old fashioned on purpose. And man, it's just really easy to get behind helping others get a hold of some of those skills and learning, like, hey, you need to get that Yucca app. And the thing that I guess is free. You can pay for something like a higher version of it where you can search more, but it has a barcode thing on there, and then it cites its resources. So if you don't believe it, then check out their resources. Then if you're like, well then don't listen to it. And I don't listen to it for caloric intake, or if it tells me it's got too much salt or sugar in there, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I care about the additives. And you know what? One of the things, Dove deodorant, okay? I buy aluminum-free deodorant because aluminum has been connected to breast cancer, okay? And then you're smearing it in your armpit right there beside your boob, okay? So and men can get breast cancer too, because my husband's father actually had breast cancer, okay? So, anyways, so I try to get aluminum free, and the one that was cucumber scented, which I don't know why I was wanting a cucumber scented armpit, but whatever, that one had an additive, but another one of the scents didn't. So, that's how thorough you need to be. But has there ever been anything that you're just like, whoa, we're not going to have that anymore? Is there anything, food that you're like, whoa, I'm going to stay away from that?
Well, probably carbohydrates, I guess. That's the hard thing to avoid. But I think that I did a lot of research into it, and you're talking about information. That is the hard thing, is knowing it, whatever source you're using, if it's even legitimate information, because you can put anything out there anymore. And but when I started researching the low carb diets, that was very interesting, and I think it all started in the 50s when they made fats evil, and I think that fats are probably better for us than carbohydrates, but carbohydrates are easier to sell, and they're more stable, and so that's why you go to the grocery store and carbs are king, and so it's really difficult to be mindful and eat healthy, because you have to work at it really hard.
See, and with carbohydrates, like I'm okay with some fruits, but then like breads, I want to get to where we do all sourdough, and I want to make my own. I want to have pasta in my life, and I want to have bread in my life, but I realize I don't want to buy a loaf of bread that's got 20 ingredients, and then I can't even pronounce part of them. So we're going to do some basic stuff. And then the thing that I'm looking into, so boy, this might make me a weirdo, but I don't want folic acid in my, that's the new naughty thing that I'm going to go to war against on the breads that I'm eating. But a lot of people, we've been told so much stuff about, oh, you got to increase that. And boy, whenever you do your research, you'll be like, And you know what? I want to have bread that's not enriched and bread that's not fortified. And so I'm having to, I've got to fight to find things that don't have additives in there. So that's my thing. I'm just trying to find, here I am, I'm a horse trail riding facility owner, former fighter, and I want to do homesteading. And then I have so much respect for Dr. Whittle because he was able to help my mule. And my mule I do mounted archery on. But then like the little, I can skin a buck and run a trout out. Like that girl that's inside of me, I love mounted archery because it doesn't give up my location. So there's like this little bit of a survivalist in there, but then I also love archery and I love my mule and I love to have proper health of everything. So that's me in a nutshell. If you would like to come to Von Holten Ranch, that's a German last name. By the way, my last name was Smith before I got married, and then I got Von Holten, this 2-word German last name that's extremely difficult, but it was a really cool fight name, Von Holten. Like, I just automatically sound like I'm going to hurt somebody, or open up a beer bottle with my teeth or something, So tell them a little, you got anything, a wow factor? What would be something that people would never know about you unless they listen to this podcast?
That one's a hard one. I'm very introverted and I would much prefer to be out in the woods, especially in the mountains, but people that know me well know that. But yeah, that's kind of my happy place.
Yeah, I knew that me and you were different in some ways whenever you had sedated my mule, and then I played Because I Got High by Shaggy, and you were like, what is this song? And I was like, what? And you were like, I don't know this song. And I'm like, well, here, let me play it for you, because my mule was over there like, woo. So... All right, so if somebody has an equine that's got some dental issues, or are you accepting clients if they have like a problem?
I do. I try to not take business away from other veterinarians, and so I try to do most of my business, based on referrals from other veterinarians, and just try to help them offer services that they can't or don't offer themselves.
Okay. So how do they get in touch with you, or how do they have their vet get in touch with you if they stumble upon something that needs help?
Well, so I'm at Honey Creek Veterinary Hospital in Trenton, Missouri, and you can look up our phone number. It's 660-359-9908. And then sometimes I'm off teaching. I teach at different vet schools, dentistry workshops, and so I return calls when I get back.
And you have went to how many, was it 22 states or 22 different veterinarian schools?
I think I've taught 41 workshops at 22 different vet schools. Wow, that's crazy.
That's some knowledge that you're giving out there. So, veterinarian schools, one that's just like, wow, this looks like working artwork. Like, it's just like the most beautiful facility that you're like, wow. Where's a college that knocked your socks off?
Well, I hate to pit anybody against anybody else, but, just, I guess, sheer grandiosity, I'd have to say Texas A&M, okay. Probably the biggest that I've been to. And I tell veterinary students, it doesn't matter where you go to vet school. It's what you put into it. It's what you'll get out of it. And that's like anything. You don't have to go to Harvard to be an attorney. It's that just means you spend a lot of money, I guess.
Well, and to tell you the truth, I don't care where you went to college at. I don't even know where you went to college at. I'm just so happy you were able to help me with my mule. You know that? Like people, whenever I was a school teacher, they didn't care where I went to school at. People are probably going to hate that because some of these colleges are ridiculously expensive. But, man, after you get that piece of paper, nobody cares where you got it from. I mean, it's just nice to throw it around a little bit and maybe connect with people. But it's the knowledge and it's the passion. It is the passion that you put into your discipline, you know. I mean, like, I would have never known that Dr. Whittle existed. I would have not have known you existed. But then somebody that I respected needed help and then needed help for my mule. And now I'm all like, woo, Dr. Whittle, I want everybody to know about him. He's actually going to be in Mules and More Magazine for their February edition for 2024 because I wrote up all about this because people were just blown away. The number one comment that people said to me about the tooth extraction was, it's a very large tooth, and they couldn't believe you got it out in one piece. That was just like, wow.
I couldn't believe it myself, as you could tell by my reaction once it came out.
Oh, yeah. We were like, woo! We were so happy that thing came out because, it was if and you didn't know if you were going to be able to be successful, which nobody knows the future, okay? But you were like, I will try. And, man, me as a client, just trying, I don't expect you to be a miracle worker. I'm just happy that you would, you were prepared and you said yes and, and you tried because this animal means the world to me and I'm supposed to shoot fire from him in April at the Midwest Horse Fair if everything goes through. All of our stuff's been put in, but it's just got to happen. But I shot fire from him at Equifest of Kansas in 2019, and so I wouldn't. You know what? And that mule, I think it would have ended up rupturing. It just had but I'm happy that he's not in pain. So I appreciate that. So if they want to get in touch with you, they can call, or that's the best way is phone call.
Yeah, that'd be the best way.
And it was Honey Creek Veterinarian Clinic? Hospital. Okay. And then if you were wanting to come to Von Holten Ranch with all of our craziness, it's Von Holten, which is VON, and then and then HOLTEN. Like we're a perfect 10, so we put that number in our name. That's just a funny way to remember it. Okay, Von Holten Ranch and .com. That's our website. You can find me on Facebook and TikTok, or my biggest following of all because we do Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, of course. Facebook is our second biggest following. Our biggest following is on TikTok for just myself, Brandy Von Holten, but you better be prepared to see somebody doing some ice water baths and telling you about everything that they're doing. You got to be open-minded, okay? All right. Thank y'all for tuning in to Country Tough with Brandy Von Holten.